Hey everybody, it is Friday, February 5th, and it is time for my sketchbook review. This week's kind of messy, really kind of hard to explain. I feel like creatively I've been pulled in way too many directions, and my artwork is starting to suffer kind of as a result of it. So I think one of the goals I'm setting for this next week is to focus, like pick a subject and focus on it, and don't let myself get too pulled in any one direction, because I'm just getting pulled everywhere right now. And so creatively I'm wanting to dip into all these different facets of creativity, and it's gotten to the point now where I feel like everything I work on is garbage because I'm not putting the time into it that I need to be putting into it, on top of the normal things I'm doing, like getting a job and trying not to look at my bank account, things like that. I'm just so definitely this week one of my main goals is I need to start focusing more on my own stuff. I need to focus on finalizing character designs. I need to create some characters. So I've got a lot that I need to get done, and I also need to be writing a little bit, which I hate because I'm terrible at it, but I need to do that too. So focus is the word of this week, because and you guys will kind of see. So all right, we left off with Drink Serving Piper last week, and so first thing I wanted to do this week was I wanted to get all of the sketches for the next page of Piper's backstory done, and I really failed to do that because I got really stuck on what I wanted as far as a design for a cute little mouse kid, which, by the way, I succeeded. Like, this is stinking adorable and I love it. So I mean, it was a success, but it wasn't, because I spent so much time frustrated over just this one part, and I was so frustrated that I just kind of stepped away from the page altogether, and I've only got maybe 3 panels here that I can shift and change. And I also need to revisit some of these because I want to change the camera panels, or the camera directions, because I feel like I'm using the same perspective over and over and over again, and that gets very, very boring when you're reading a comic. So even though I'm done, I'm not done, and I need more panels for the page too, so we'll see. But I want to work on this. I want to get the comic done. It's actually pretty close to being done. I just need to buckle in and get geared on, and I'm not doing it because I'm just like, It's part of the reason. And it's like, this is something you younger artists out there who follow me, is like, as you get older and the weight of responsibility starts weighing on you, your art will suffer for it, and there's no helping it. Like, I use art as an escape, but there's some things you can't escape from. The stress of not being able to pay your bills is definitely something you can never actually escape from. And unfortunately, it messes you up artistically. And it's sad, but it is what it is. Yeah, so moving on. That's not the next page. This is the next page. I wanted to do a new icon for Scarlet. So we've got Piper's backstory. I got Duckverse stuff going, and I got some Harp and Stars going, and that's how I'm getting pulled in all these different directions. It's like my hand is still moving, which is fine, but I need to focus on something, because when I don't focus, because it takes me a while to warm up into a subject matter, and if I don't warm up to it and take the time in it, then the work I get is subpar, and I recognize my own subpar work, and then I just get disappointed. So yeah. Oh, and I also did some cherry stuff too. See, so multiple directions, not to mention role play, not to mention just everyday stuff. But I wanted to do a new icon, and I just couldn't seem to get her face down. So I left it alone. I'm going to revisit it later on down the road. The character isn't even active right now, so she doesn't need a new icon yet, but I want to get one. This was just a scene from roleplay that I had imagined in my mind, because it was like this really big eagle dude, and then like this little tiny little girl going up there and telling him to stop, and I was just like, he just swoosh you. I was just being facetious. I don't think I am using that word correctly. Quick picture of Sam and Jade, just for funsies. Yes, the implied theme is not as subtle as I would probably make it, but they're actually cuddle buddies. See? They just hug. No, I was actually just trying to learn how to draw other people's characters because I feel like I'm getting stagnant in my own. I can't turn the page. I took Kitabira's characters, Sharky and Smiles, and I made them into mice because they're actually stick figures. And I turned them into mice, and I was like, well, what can they be doing? I was like, well, they're kind of theatrical guys, so let's have them singing something. And so, again, Les Miserables has been in the back of my mind for like the last 4 months now. And so I had Sharky singing one song, and I had Smiles singing the other. And Smiles and Piper. Because what I wanted to do is I want to bring these two into the comic as escorts, not like male escorts or anything like that. So that's not what I mean, but just to escort her to a town so she can get to the city she's trying to reach. I wanted to bring them in because I needed some male designs, and she'd already had these characters designed out, even though they were in stick figure form. Like, they were rough enough that I could actually work with them. And I had doodled a picture earlier in my sketchbook of them and showed it to her, and she really liked it. So I went ahead and asked her if I could go ahead and use them in the comic just to kind of move things along, and she gave me permission. So I wanted to practice drawing them a little bit more to get their design down and flesh them out a bit. And she and I got talking, and we were talking about the different ways that they would woo a woman. And I was like, all right, let's have them woo Piper at some point. But it was just for fun. Little doodles, and so I kind of went with that. So the next few pages is Sharky trying to woo her. Like, to him, he'd be very intense and very poetic, I feel, whereas Smiles would just be all fun and dancing and just straight up physical affection. Now, both physical affection, don't get me wrong, holding hands and everything like that is a sign of physical affection, but there's different types of affection. There's like exuberant affection, and then there's subtle affection. Like me and my husband, subtle affection. Y'all wouldn't even know we were married with how subtle we are with, you know, any hand holding or anything like that. But I'm trying to think. I know couples who are just, they're all over each other all the time. So just the differences in personality. With him, it'd be a lot more, I want to say, what's a good word for it? I don't know. It escapes me. But he would just, like, I want to say poetic. It's a lot more poetic in his sense, whereas Smiles would just be a lot more fun. Like, let's play. Like, this is a thing to play with, whereas Sharky would be more serious. And I wrote wooing as subtle as a truck, because that's what it is. I love this laughing face I got on her too. It's hard for me to get the expressions on them sometimes because I get so wrapped up in everything else, but that one turned out good. And then here's another one where he's just, you know, just a gentle touch here of her hair and holding her hand and stuff like that. And then Smiles would be like right up in her face, nose to nose, and smoosh. I was in a smoosh mood this week. But I was just scribbling these out to get my hand moving. But again, this is yet another reason why my mind, like, it's backstory for the comic I'm working on, so there's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, it's like, that's not what I should be focusing on. I need to focus on actually completing the comic so it can be done. I think part of me is like, I'm anxious to see a completed thing. But then I'm going to go through and want to redo it all because I'm re-looking at the art and I'm like, man, if I just tweaked it a little bit, it looks so much better. And it's not like I don't have time, so it might happen. Sharky and Piper dancing, and it's supposed to be he's spinning her around, but I didn't finish the drawing, so it's kind of hard to see. But I think that's kind of where I ended with that whole thing, because I just kind of got burnt out, and I didn't feel like I was producing anything worth showing. Like, my sketches usually tend to be very complete, but like I was struggling just to get to this point, and I don't know, like my hand just didn't want to work. Mouse Piper in her theft uniform, except her ears are missing. I just didn't finish it. I don't know. I think I saw a pose and I just wanted to use the pose, so I went with it. Piper and Hermes because in my mind, at least, if she doesn't end up with Liz Rain, she will end up with Hermes probably. But, you know, that was just for funsies too. And then I started pushing myself a little bit more. I was like, okay, let's find a dynamic pose. And I was watching some gymnastics videos, and I was like, all right, let's do a backflip. And of course, Cherry's going to be the one doing it. So I just kind of took the basic motion and tried to build around it. And it worked and it didn't. Anatomy, again, my anatomy isn't necessarily the strongest. And I tend to struggle with it, but sometimes I can get it to work and sometimes I can't. And in this case, it's like it's halfway there. I don't know. It didn't turn out good, but whatever. Then I started trying to do male designs. And I'm going to do a turnabout for Cherry, I believe, because I basically have most of one in here. And I just figure it would be something, yeah, I've already got one kind of started. It would just be something to help me focus. And it's kind of like the math homework you do before a project. You know, and you're like, I'm going to go just do some logical math homework to get my brain working, and then I'll move into something else. Not that anybody ever seeks to go do their own math. I seek to go do my own math because I actually very much enjoy math now that I know how to do it right. But it's basically just a busy work to get me focused on actual work. Because I tend to not peak creatively until midnight, and that's cool, except Aaron gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So if I peak at midnight and I'm going until 4 o'clock in the morning, then he gets me up 2 hours later. So like this entire week I've been basically doing that to myself. Except for Monday. I got a lot of sleep Monday. I got like 12 hours. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, so I'm thinking about just setting forth little projects like that. Like a turnabout is actually a pretty big project. It's hard to do. And I know a lot of people don't think it is, but it really is because looking at your character from all those different angles, you know in your head what you want to do, but making it look consistent from side to side to side to side is somewhat difficult. At least it is for me. So, and I was kind of just preparing for that over here because I've got her facing that direction, and yeah. And I think, nope, I was doing some male designs, some male mouse designs, because I want, when it comes to Cherry, is I want that to be my baby. I want that to be a story that I do off to the side. Like, I'm using her for roleplay purposes and things like that, but it's not actually her story. I want that to be off to the side. I want that to be something I work on. I mean, initially that was going to be it to begin with, and then someone scared me away from it, and now I'm back into it. So, and by the way, never let anybody scare you guys away from what you want to do. Nobody owns anything. Nobody owns a concept. Nobody owns a theme. I mean, they can own characters and they can own actual productions, but they can't own an idea. There's people trying to like copyright like certain, what is it, species and stuff like that they've created or something. It's like, you can't do that. Who copyrights a species? If that's true, then whoever like made a golden retriever, you know, because they're not a naturally occurring species, should be like a bagajillionaire because they have, you know, they're so popular, and no one else should be allowed to ever breed them. You know what I mean? End rant. Anyway, so I was working on male character. I think I'm going to pull up some pictures of Raylan Givens, and I'm going to base the character off of him a little bit, because everybody needs to like some Raylan Givens. My biggest problem is designing male characters, period. I don't draw a whole lot of males to begin with, because I've always been in a situation where it's always a collaboration and somebody else has designed the male side of the characters. Because like some of my friends, even in college and things like that, very male oriented with their characters, whereas I've always been female oriented. I just prefer drawing females more. It's easier for me and I enjoy it. But I do need to have more male characters. So I'm starting it, and I'm hoping I can continue with it. The problem is like I always need to have a stupid story to go with them, and I'm like, what am I gonna say about this dude? And why the heck is he talking to Cherry when she's a psychopath? So I thought maybe like a bounty hunter sort of thing, but I'm very hesitant because that's so cliche. Like, super cliche. Like, almost every single year there's a movie about bounty hunters falling in love or some crap like that. And it's not even going to be that. She's just trying to kill each other. So, yeah. That and figuring out face shapes and stuff like that. And I've actually been looking at my style, and I've been looking at some other styles, and I'm thinking maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I'm trying too hard. Maybe it would be a better idea to pull it back to a simpler animation style, because as much as I like my style and as natural as it is for me, it seems unnatural in the fact of like things don't seem to fit together. Like face shapes are difficult because I have to contend with a nose. But of course I can always shorten that nose, lengthen that nose. It's different. It's no different than any other nose. Like if I do this, like mouse noses, something to, I can't see, to like this degree. And then you have your little snout. But a human nose, honestly, isn't too much different. It's 3 circles, a little dip, and then up. And then a mouse nose, that the way I draw them anyway, is just like a triangle, like this, and then up. So it actually could be 3 circles as well. So, I mean, and there's all different shapes and sizes and everything like that, and I get it. But I think what I struggle with is I want it to be so clearly anthropomorphic, but at the same time I'm still using my human proportions to try to pull it out. So I'm kind of thinking about moving away from those human proportions, but that's going to take a ton of study. I used to draw more mousy looking characters, honestly, and I stopped doing it. I don't know why. Trying to think if I had a reason. I probably didn't have a reason. I was probably like, well, screw it. I'm just going to draw a human head and put a mouse nose on it. And that's probably exactly what I did. But I want to kind of pull it back and make it more simple. I want to... The problem is, and this is something too, is like the more simple you go, the harder it is to convince your audience that what you're drawing makes sense. Like, without face lines and things like that, you basically have to fill it in. It's so hard to explain. It's like the more simple you go, the harder it is to convince a person that it is actually indeed a 3-dimensional, or supposed to be representational of a 3-dimensional object. We tend to use shading and scoring and hashing and things like that to kind of give artwork depth. But when you're working in a 2D format, you actually have to change things. So you might have to curve the eye in such a way that it looks like it's curving out or curving up or curving in, to give it a sense of dimension, whereas in real life they don't curve like that. It's again, it's the stretch and pull, it's the crunch and extend, it's all of that stuff. Is you're just visually manipulating what the person is looking at. You're exaggerating the proportions, you're exaggerating the directions. So really what I'm going to end up doing is probably pulling out my animation books and starting to take a look at that stuff again. And I'm hoping, like, because my art feels very, I want to say bland, like stale and stiff. And it's always been a problem I've struggled with. But there's been moments where there's clarity and I can actually produce motion. Hair, for me, I can produce motion in hair all day long. But give me a body and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But alright, I have been rambling for a long time. I apologize for that. It's just, there's been a lot on my mind when it comes to my art this week because it's literally the only thing I've got to focus on. I'm still waiting to hear from the state on whether or not I can even take my state boards. But they said it could take up to 4 weeks, and it's kind of driving me up the wall, but not really because I'm not ready for them yet. So there's that. And then again, I've been applying to so many jobs and I'm not hearing anything back. And I know some people are like, well, why don't you go ask? My parents tend to sometimes be like that, and they don't understand that you go ask, are you guys hiring? They sit you down at a computer and make you fill out an application anyway. So you may as well, save the gas money and do that at home, because they're not going to give you on-the-spot interviews. The only time I had an on-the-spot interview was when I was 18, so we're talking over 10 years ago, and my parents happen to know the person who owned the store. The only other time I've ever just walked in and gotten a job is if I go to places where I've already worked. And I'm kind of trying to avoid that because the amount of money I would be making versus the amount of hours I'm going to be getting versus the distance I would have to drive, it doesn't equal out. I basically will be paying to go to work. So that's not going to happen, I guess, which is sad, but anyway, that being said, commissions are open. All of my information is on my DeviantArt page. If you guys are interested, and I'll probably be posting some more advertisements on that here pretty soon because I need some money. If you guys enjoyed, or if you guys want to help out, link my videos, do stuff like that. That helps a lot more than people realize. I know that the ads don't pay a whole lot, but over time they kind of do. At least you get something. It's better than nothing. So yeah. But anyway, enough rambling. That's it for this week. It's kind of all over the board. Duckverse, mouse work, cherry work. Not a single human this week though, so there you go. I also did a bunch of color works, but because this video has already gone on so long, I'm not going to go ahead and include them. But they're on my DeviantArt, so you guys can go check them out there. But other than that, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, comment below. I'm going to probably be picking some challenges to do here pretty soon just to kind of keep myself moving. So yeah, if you guys have any challenges down below, go ahead and toss those in there. Yeah, I'll do that. And other than that, I hope you guys have a good week, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next week in next week's sketchbook review.